delighted to be with you guys today, and I'm mostly delighted because I can actually see over this microphone, which is a new thing for me. Thank you, Sue, for your kind words, and thank you, Kobe. Where are you? Yeah, thank you very much. It is a delight to work with you. Kobe mentioned my candor, which is probably my greatest weakness, because he's right. I do tend to be fairly candid, which means I'm always in trouble. With somebody, I am always in trouble. So I'm glad that I've survived long enough to be able to visit with you guys today. And we've been having a fabulous time at my table talking about food. So we would really rather talk about food. I'm going to make apologies to my table here because I think I'm obligated to transition to airports. So we're going to give this a shot. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about state of the world at Van Nuys, a little bit about Ontario, and then I'm understanding that several of you were interested in some of the projects that we've just finished and will be doing at LAX. So I'll touch on those things. We'll be a little bit hodgepodge, and then I'm hoping we have time for questions. So first, Van Nuys, state of the world at Van Nuys Airport. I think it's pretty darn good. I would dare say that this is one of the things that the Law West staff is most proud about. Isn't that a beautiful new runway? Yeah. We are so I love it. And you know, there is no one that deserves more thanks and credit than all of the tenants at Van Nuys. This was truly a collective effort. And Jess, I want to publicly thank you. Jess is our point person for Van Nuys in Ontario, and so he got to preside over all of the realities that many of the tenants were wrestling with every day as parts of that runway were closed. But for the first time in 30 years, you know, there's a runway that's going to last for a very good long time, and we're very glad that that happened. We are actually up on aircraft movements at Van Nuys, which is typically what we're measuring as the level of demand for general aviation activity, up about 3.6%, which is the largest single uptake that I can remember in the last 6 years. So that's good news. We're delighted to have a new runway for those increased aircraft movements. We broke even last year for the very first time in the 6.5 years that I've been here, meaning that we covered our operating costs and we covered our depreciation allocation. So that's fabulous. It was a red letter day for us. Probably we will not cover all of those costs this year because we'll have some of the depreciation on that new runway that will start to hit the books, but we're very close. So that's a really good thing. The backlog of leases that had accumulated over the many years of master planning for Van Nuys has finally been pretty much worked through, and the seemingly endless negotiations over rental rates. I think there are a few outliers still that we're working on, but most of that backlog has been slogged through. We have a couple of we have our redevelopment plan that's been reviewed by the Board of Airport Commissioners, and our intent on this was to try to find a balance and a respect between folks that have been on Van Nuys doing business for years and the need for new opportunities for new entrants and different sectors of the market. So we think we've struck that balance. On any given opportunity, there will be people who agree or disagree as to whether we've struck the right balance or not, but that's the intent. We've got a solicitation for qualifications that the proposers just came in on the old Pentastar property and the what we were calling the Daily Drive property. And the process on that is going to be that we will go through the proposers, identify a qualified list, and then that qualified list will be invited to propose on either Pentastar or the Daily Drive property, maybe both at the same time, but we don't know that yet. We're trying to meter out opportunities for competitive business way that doesn't flood the market. In other words, there's kind of you don't want to have so much property on the you know, y'all come list at the same time, so that you reduce the viability of some of the businesses that are operating on the airport. So that's another balance we're going to try to strike. But all in all, I would say the state of things at Van Nuys is the best that I've seen it in the last 6.5 years. It still is one of those airports that it vies on any given year for being the busiest general aviation airport in the world, which is great, and I think we're in a good position to be competitively, you know, being number 1 or number 2 as the years go forward. So let's move to Ontario, since that's occasionally in the news. Ontario is down in traffic again this year. The good news, though, was that we had an uptick for December. Is that right, Jess? 1.5%. About 1.5%. But it was the first month in several years where there had been a net increase. So have we hit bottom at Van Nuys yet or not? I don't know. I hope we have, but time will tell. We've got a new carrier coming in is it April? And that's Volaris, right? With a new route to Mexico City? Guadalajara. So that's good news. We have done, I have to give Jess kudos here and the staff at Van Nuys. It is never any fun to preside over a diminution of traffic and the responsible management things that you have to do to try to balance your costs and your revenues. They've done a terrific job. We're hanging on. Ontario will be a successful airport. I cannot tell you when the traffic will robustly grow back. The national projections for medium hub airports in multi-airport markets is not very bullish. Partially because the airlines have finally figured out, after decades, they've finally figured out how to make some money. And basically their formula for making money is to reduce the amount of capacity that they are providing in the system. In other words, take seats out of the market, which means that people who want to travel are willing to pay more for the seats that remain in the market, because there aren't as many as there were before. And they want to manage their risk to the point where they have as little of it as possible. And the way to manage their risk is to do most of their flying out of the major hub airports where they've got a very strong and predictable market. So that's what's happening in all over the country. And you see the effects that Ontario Airport is suffering through at other multi-airport regions. Just you can take a look at the northern part of the state. San Francisco is growing, percentage-wise, they're growing faster than LAX. San Jose and Oakland are struggling. Same is true is happening on the East Coast with Boston. Boston is growing very robustly. Manchester and Providence are not. They are losing traffic. So it's a basic change in the airline industry that we're going to try to manage as best we can, and stay tuned. So now, let's see what's next here. Here's a couple of views of some of the projects that are finished at LAX and some that we will be entering into. This actually is not a rendering, this is the way it looks at night. There are many people that have said LAX looks the very best at night. And there's a lot that goes into that, but I think they're probably right. And this is a new canopy in front of the Tom Bradley International Terminal. New light poles. We have put an LED light edge on the new canopy that you can see there, that blue light that goes around. And then we're also extending LED lights onto the, let's see, is there a pointer here? Whoop, that did something. Yeah, maybe that's the pointer. There we go. Right here is the LED lights that mimic the lights of the pylons out in the front of LAX. And in a minute, we'll talk about the project that is going to extend this look all the way around the central terminal area. In the meantime, though, this is the interior of the new Bradley West concourse. This, I think, is looking to the north concourse. This is the central terminal area, which is largely the commercial area. High-end retail in this island here. These are probably the most unique features of this terminal, which is a great deal of media screens. We call them integrated environmental media because the design behind these media icons is actually they're intended to affect the way you as the passenger feel in the environment. And they do. I think people are finding them to be quite enchanting. The businesses here are doing very well. Most all of them are open. There are a couple on the North Concourse and the South Concourse that are still not open, but most all of the restaurants and the retail are open here in the Central Core area. Here you'll see a mezzanine. We call this the wedding cake because it kind of is tiered back like a wedding cake. And this is publicly available restaurants. This is the Star Alliance Lounge. And on this side, not in the picture, but you can see there's a mimic of that. There's a wedding cake mezzanine section on the other side here, which will also have first-class lounges. Okay, so the what's to come. This is a bird's eye view of the central terminal area at LAX, and I'm going to just apologize to all of you right now. For the next couple of years, we're going to be very challenged traffic-wise. The blue here is the upper roadway, which was installed in the early 80s. And the orange brackets that you see here are expansion joints. Think back to the last time you drove on the upper roadway at LAX and you went kaplunk, kaplunk. You were passing an expansion joint. Those have not been repaired for the, 30 years since the roadway was built, and everything is perfectly safe, but the expansion joints have compressed. So you know every time you are changing elevation. So we're going in replacing all of those expansion joints around the upper roadway. To do that, we are going to let the contractor work for only 4 hours at night, and I think it's between 1 and 5, 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. They have huge penalties in their contract if they don't open right at 5 a.m. So we're trying to do everything we can to be sure that this minimizes the impact on the traveling public, but there is no doubt it's going to be challenging. So hang on, and we'll apologize in advance. But the end result is also going to take the new light poles and the light band, same as what was installed in front of the new Bradley terminal, and extend it all the way around the rest of the central terminal area. We actually wanted to do this and have it done by the time that we had the Bradley terminal open, but we thought it probably wasn't good if we didn't kind of eat the spinach. In other words, do the expansion joint repair before we put the lipstick on. So we'll eat the spinach and then we're going to put the lipstick on. This will take 2 years for both of those things to get accomplished. Now let's talk about Metro, since it's been in the news a lot. Okay, here's the deal. We've got Lisa Tripoletti here, raise your hand. She is our tip of the spear with Metro planning. This is what we gave Metro to say, come on, bring your train here. Let me just orient you. This, again, is the central terminal area. This first little asterisk is the old air traffic control tower, right at the mouth between terminals 1 and 7. The other place we identified is right around where Lot C is now. This is just north of the Sheraton Gateway Hotel on Century Boulevard. We said you could bring your train here. And then, of course, this is where they are currently building the Crenshaw Station, which is at Aviation and Century Boulevard. So we said, you guys do what you want to do. These are areas where if you bring the train here, we will build the station for you. If you bring the train here, we will build the station for you. Ultimately, our plan is to build an intermodal transportation facility here, which we'll talk about a little bit in a moment, and the consolidated rental car facility out here in what's called Manchester Square. And again, this is Aviation Boulevard, and this is Century Boulevard. A little bit about, oh yeah, I didn't tell you this, should tell you this. Our plan would be then for us to connect for airport purposes, we would connect all this with an automated people mover system. Not a new concept, it was in the old existing master plan. We don't have an alignment, we're gonna talk about that in a second. But something that is stealth that people don't just really think about is the volume of passengers that need to be moved from the central terminal out to different transportation modes, including the Conrack. Conrack's about 20% of our passenger base. Is that about right, Lisa?
More than that.
More than that, 25?
On the people mover system, it'll make up over 50% when we actually develop that whole system.
Yeah, but Conrack itself is something between 20 and 30%. Then we'll have other demand for the automated people mover system. Here we would plan to aggregate a bunch of different transportation modes, and I've got some pictures on that we'll talk a little bit more later. So what LAX is solving for is a huge volume of passenger demand to go between these facilities. What Metro is solving for is how to get passengers north and south. So two different missions that need to find the very best nexus. So let's just talk about the automated people mover system for a minute, because there is this huge lore that says, oh, we just need an APM, we need an APM, we need an APM. Well, there are going to be significant trade-offs to an APM, and alignment is the very, very first puzzle for us to try to resolve. Here's kind of what it looks like. This again is the central terminal area. We've got three alternatives that we've kind of boiled this down to. One, and just think about the density of the development inside the central terminal area at LAX. You've got the terminals, about 4 lanes of roadway, and you've got all these parking garages here. So the APM is not as big as a heavy rail, obviously, but it's still a fairly significant transportation system in order to bring in and integrate with facilities that are already there. So here's the scissors concept, where you bring one end on the north side, one end on the south side, and then have it go out to the new facilities. Here's the traditional one. Most any drawing you pick up, it will show an APM going all the way around the central terminal area. Are you going to hang it on the parking garage, or are you going to hang it on the terminals? And then what are the resulting facility impacts if you do that? I can tell you essentially, if you hang it on the parking garage, you're probably going to have to tear them all down and build them again, because seismically they probably won't take an APM being built on top of them. And the terminals, you basically would be tearing down the front of all these terminals in order to integrate a train system. The last option is to bring it down the spine, what we call the spine. Here's the theme building, here's the old tower, here's the theme building, the new air traffic control tower, and here is the new central utility plant, which, oh, by the way, we are in a phased way, we're commissioning them. So the downside of this is that you're going to have fairly significant walk distances to the terminals. So we don't know what the answer is, but you now have just had a small window on some of the dilemmas that we are wrestling with in order to determine a recommended alignment. Okay, here's a couple of views of the intermodal transportation facility, and I'm going to go back just so that I can remind you guys where that's being built. So again, here's the central terminal area. This is the Sheraton Gateway, and this is part of Lot C. Any of you ever take the Culver City bus, the Santa Monica Blue bus, or the MTA bus, you are getting off and on that bus here right now. So it's that real estate that we are proposing to build what we're calling an intermodal transportation facility. I think it's Transportation Planning 101, that in order to induce people to use the maximum public transportation options that they can, you should aggregate those options all on the same piece of real estate so that the transition between one and the other is very, very easy. That is what this facility is intended to accomplish. So of course, we're saying, Metro, you might want to bring your light rail station here so that it can have a nexus with all of the buses that we'll bring in, our own APM station, which we would be putting in for the airport transportation, and scheduled shuttles, Roadrunner, listen up, and anything else that are transportation options that as the central terminal area of LAX fills in, we're going to have to take some of those uses and put them out somewhere else, because everybody just can't have the curb space. This is a rendering of what the intermodal transportation facility could look like. It could be as fancy or as stripped down as we want it to be, and it really depends on how many modes of transportation we get to be co-located in that same real estate. Anything else I should say about that, Lisa?
Just a new front door to the city
Okay,
airport.
all right. So here are some of the options. The blue is the blue dotted line is intended to represent the automated people mover system. So forget the dilemma right here about the alignment. Could be this alignment, could be the scissors alignment, could be the down the spine alignment. What I'm intending to show here is that whatever its alignment in the central terminal area is, it will ultimately be connected to the intermodal transportation facility, and then ultimately out to a future consolidated rail car facility. This little tail right here is that if the light rail station stays at Aviation and Century and the train doesn't move in at all, then eventually we would extend the APM down to the Aviation and Century station. Whether that's the best thing to do or not is really Metro's decision. This is another alternative that would essentially take the Crenshaw line and the green line, which is intended to be represented here by this blue and green dotted line, bend that alignment over to come to the intermodal transportation facility, which would then mean that Crenshaw and Green Line would be connected directly to the intermodal transportation facility and all of the other modes of transportation that would be co-located. So there you would get on the APM, you'd be about a mile or 3/4 of a mile closer to the airport, and then you'd come into the airport on the APM. And the APM would stop then at the future Conrad. This is a rendering of what a few folks are thinking conceptually could actually be the development opportunities along the Century Corridor. Now, you guys know as well as I do that the Century Corridor is kind of nowhere. It's got a bunch of hotels, but the hoteliers are very vocal about saying, wait a second already, we need it there. We need something, we need some commercial development, we need some restaurants, we need something for people to be able to do something here in all of this area. And this east end of Westchester doesn't have a plan for maximizing its economic development. We think that with the transportation options that will be provided by the intermodal transportation facility, the ultimate construction of a consolidated rental car facility on the northwest portion of Manchester Square, that there are very likely huge development opportunities along the Century Corridor, north of the Century Corridor using the southern part of Manchester Square, and around the ITF, the Intermodal Transportation Facility. It provides a nexus for, and a springboard for economic development that could transform that portion of the LAX neighborhood. So I think that is it. Yes, that is it. I'll leave you with that little vision. That's what we have ahead of us at LAX. Here's the deal. We're in the middle, about the middle of delivering $7 billion of projects at LAX. I am sorry to tell you that because we do not have environmental clearance for all of the projects we just talked about, the APM, the Intermodal Transportation Facility, and the Consolidated Rental Car Facility are not part of that $7 billion. So that's another, and if you include airfield changes in that, that's about another $8 billion. So LAX is finally in the perpetual construction mode that a lot of other airports have been for many, many years. But we're definitely in a catch-up mode at LAX. We're trying to make up for 30 years of not getting anything done. So with that, I would really love to deal with questions, and I have people who really know things here. Jess and Lisa, and probably several other folks as well. Who's first? Okay, Lisa, different Lisa.
Thank you. I just actually wanted to pay a compliment because
Oh, well, so you have all the time in the world.
I flew into the Tom Bradley terminal at the end of, or the
Good, one moment in time, that's great. Okay, yes, in the back.
I was at the MTA meetings last week, committee meetings, and going back to what you were showing us on how the connection would be to Crenshaw or other lines. It was very clear that Supervisor Ridley Thomas was very insistent that doesn't want the same mistake made again, where the train, the light rail doesn't come directly into the terminal, and he suggested that instead of eliminating those plans, that be a focus of them. Can you give us a little background on what might be some of the issues with bringing it directly into the terminal to Bradley or other places?
Yeah. First of all, let me preface my response by saying if MTA has indicated they wanted to pare down the alternatives. If they wanted to pare down the alternatives, that is an alternative that we thought was going to run into problems, and so we said if you need to pitch that one over, then that's fine. But if you want to study it, that's fine too. Did I do that? Here are some of the problems we think could come into that. I don't know if I have a better picture. Well, yeah, let's actually work from this one. I think the supervisor is not considering this old tower to be into the central terminal area. I think he is interested in getting it either into the theme building or into the Tom Bradley. And I absolutely 100% understand that desire. And I think in a perfect world, we would all think that was better to have the light rail integrated into the terminal facilities. The challenges are this: in order to access into either the theme building or the Bradley, you're going to have to come underground. So they'd have to come underground on the south airfield and underground in the north airfield. I can tell you from the experience just building Bradley and trying to figure out how we were going to connect to a midfield satellite, there's all sorts of Christmas presents under the surface of that airfield. And so the amount of surprises that will undoubtedly be discovered, it's just legion. And it will be very expensive. Even if we didn't find any surprises, it would be very expensive. But then, when you get into the CTA, let's say you bring it to the theme building. Let's say you got there. There's not enough real estate to have a nexus with any other transportation mode because it's very constrained. There's also, the theme building is too far away from the Tom Bradley terminal not to have a circulator bus or an automated people mover system. If you bring it into Bradley, the same is true for Terminals 1 and Terminal 7. You're still going to have an internal circulator. And that was kind of an unhappy realization for me too. Because we have 9 separate terminals, there is no panacea where you can bring it into one terminal and then have everybody taken care of. So those are, I think, the top line challenges that they're going to find. But, getting more information is perfectly fine with us. Two. Nothing. Yeah, I mean, that's the answer. Nothing's going on. We have more A380s every month. We are now up to, golly, what is it, 10 a day? I think it's 10. And now I'm going to start to lose track, because we get into double digits and I can't keep up. So, we're managing that. I got to give the air traffic controllers a real kudos because they have quite a puzzle to put together. There's no action on it. Who's he? Oh, no.
I'm curious on the funding that you guys have, because a lot of you, all your airlines and supporters of most of the projects, but with people mover, you've got to deal with the MTA, how much of it is going to decisions to be made based on whether funding is available? I assume that if MTA is bringing it in, they're putting it out, as opposed to the airlines being involved in,
Okay, the airport sources of revenue are going to go toward building the automated people mover system and the intermodal transportation facility. We are not currently planning for airport sources of revenue to build the light rail extension because That's Metro's baby. We will build the stations, however. We are able to, federally, we are approved to build the stations if they are on airport property. So we would be able to build the station for wherever they brought into the light rail, as long as it was airport-owned property. And airlines are not wildly excited about paying for either APMs or intermodal transportation facilities. There have been legendary fights all over about those things, but ultimately they get done. The airlines will have a share. We will use passenger facility charges to pay for part of that. We will also adjust our ground transportation fees. They won't let me sit down and get a red road right now, I know, after I sit down. We're going to adjust, you know, we have very elaborate rates and fees for all of the users of the airport, and those on the ground transportation side will have to be adjusted in order to support these kinds of facilities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, one more, that's it?
Is there anything being done at Van Nuys to attract another national FBA meeting chain now that the merger with Signature and McGuire created a lot of anxiety and feel over having a real FBO that goes to take your customers to them, and right now there's not really a good solution on the back end of that.
Yeah.
Is there a project to attract a national player versus a localized group, so that companies like ours that are more national, but, you know, headquartered here, can utilize a firm the whole way, so through different airports?
The short answer to that is yes. The very best thing we can do are the two things that I mentioned. One, put additional opportunities on the street, which is what the Pentastar property and the Daily Drive property would represent, is opportunities for somebody new to come in. And the other thing is to be sure that in putting those opportunities on the street, we meter those out in a way that we're not flooding the market and diluting the business viability for a new business coming in. You guys are fabulous. It's always a joy to come out and visit with you. Thank you all. Can't go away yet.
Let's, I'd like to bring up, thank you, Gina Marie. I'd like to bring up Coco Sarkari from International Currency Exchange for a little send-off to Gina Marie.
First off, thank you so much, Gina Marie. I'm sure I say this on behalf of